We're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work.
All right, y'all, this is hot off the press. I was just about to go to bed and I saw this and I'm like, yo, we got to see what's going on. Trump decided to get rid of the Department of Education executive order. Let's see exactly what he's talking about. I haven't seen this yet. Watching it with y'all. So let's go ahead and see what's going on. All right, y'all, so I went ahead and forwarded to the part of actual substance. There was a lot of extra talk and thanks and all that stuff, but we're here to know exactly why we are doing this. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
Thank you, Tiffany. When President Carter created the Federal Education Department in 1979, it was opposed by members of his own cabinet, as well as the American Federation of Teachers, the New York Times editorial board, and the famed Democrat Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. History has proven them right, absolutely right. After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country, and spends likewise by far more money.
I say this because the county that I used to work for, their budget was in the billions. Their budget was in the billions, hence why they were able to get a whole bunch of new technologies and retrofits and all that stuff, this, that, and the third, which could probably get affected, but let's see.
Money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close, but yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success. It's an amazing stat.
This is true.
Those are two stats you don't want. The most money spent per pupil, and you're at the bottom of the list. And that's where we are, like it or not. And we've been there for a long time. 70% of eighth graders are not proficient in either reading or in math. 70%. 40% of...
And it's weird because those are the main subjects. Like, you gotta know how to do, if you don't know how to do social studies, if you don't know history, if you don't know science, you don't know what else is there. I don't even know what other main thing is there, but it's math and reading. This is why when you go to take college state exam, you have to take a math and a reading. Those are the scores that they're looking for. They're not worried about anything else because those are the fundamentals. Do you know how to read? Do you know how to write? Do you know how to do math? If you could do those things, you cannot know how to do anything else and still be a functioning citizen in the United States.
The fourth graders lack even basic reading skills, can't read. Students in our public elementary and middle schools score worse in reading today than when the department opened. By a lot.
Even my thought is dropped.
40% of the high schools have 0 students who can do basic mathematics. Not even the very simplest of mathematics. I said, give me your definition of basic, and they're talking about...
Common Core was the worst idea ever. I'm so glad I wasn't born in the era of Common Core. It's the worst math ever possible. Whoever thought it was a good idea to teach Common Core and think that the students was going to understand it, terrible idea. The math doesn't make sense. Why are we complicating something that's so easy to understand the first time? But I digress.
Like adding a few numbers together. Despite these breathtaking failures, the department's discretionary budget has exploded by 600% in a very short period of time, and employs bureaucrats in buildings all over Washington, D.C. And as a former real estate person, I will tell you, I ride through the streets of Washington and it says Department of Education, Department of Education. I said, how do you fill those buildings? It's crazy what's happened over the years. I'm pleased to report that after offering these federal employees 2 generous buyout options, and they were very generous, and they're good people, but they were very generous. My administration has initiated a reduction in force, and we're already cutting numbers that were really surprising to a lot, that we were able to do it so successfully. And we've cut the number of bureaucrats in half. 50% have taken office, which is great. Thank you. Under the action I'm taking today, a small handful of Democrats and others that we have employed for a long time, and there are some Republicans, but not too many, I have to be honest with you. But the department's useful functions, and such as, and they're in charge of them, Pell Grants, Title I funding, resources for children with disabilities and special needs will be preserved, fully preserved. They're all going to be so. If you look at the Pell Grants, supposed to be a very good program. Title I funding, and resources for children with special disabilities and special needs. They're going to be preserved in full and redistributed to
which was kind of a concern. But as I was reading and trying to learn more about the Department of Education, there's another department that came before the Department of Education, which included all of these. So he's not, again, wiping out everything. It's just the Department of Education. But we're going to figure out and see exactly, for those that don't know, because I don't know what the purpose of the Department of Education is.
to various other agencies and departments that will take very good care of them. And that's very important to Linda, I know, and it's very important to all of us. But beyond these core necessities, my administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good. We want to return our students to the states where just some of the governors here are so happy about this. They want education to come back to them, to come back to the states, and they're going to do a phenomenal job. You know, if you look, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, I have to tell you, I give them a lot of credit. China's top 10. And so we can't now say that bigness is making it impossible to educate, because China is very big. But you have countries that do a very good job in education. And I really believe, like some of the governors here today from states that run very, very well, including a big state like Texas, but states that run very well are going to have education that will be as good as Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and those top, Finland, those top countries that do so well with education.
I don't think we're going. That's going to take a while for us to get that far.
Every bit as well. And what do you think about that, Governor? Do you agree? Huh? I think so. Ron, do you agree? I think so.
This is going to be a while before, maybe like a generation or two before we get back up there.
I really believe that. They'll be as good as any of them. And then you'll have some laggards, and we'll work with them. And we can all tell you who the laggards will be right now, probably, but let's not get into that. But we'll work with them, and we're going to make them, they'll do a job. I think they'll do a job, and they'll go to sections of the state. For instance, New York, you'll have a Manhattan, and you'll have a Suffolk County, and you'll have a Nassau County, and you'll have Westchester County. You'll do 4 or 5 or 6 of them. You have upstate New York, and those counties, I think, are going to do very well. And I think ultimately Manhattan should do very well. But we'll break it down into sections, and I think it'll be really, really good, and they're going to be probably the tougher ones, but I think they have a chance to do really well. But we're going to be returning education, very simply, back to the states where it belongs, and this is a very popular thing to do, but much more importantly, it's a common sense thing to do, and it's going to work. Absolutely, it's going to work, and I can tell you from dealing with the governors and others in the state, they want it so badly. They want to take their children back and really teach their children individually. Probably the cost will be half, and the education will be maybe many, many times better. So we look forward to this. I want to just make one little personal statement. Teachers, to me, are among the most important people in this country. And we're going to take care of our teachers. And I don't care if they're in the union or not in the union. That doesn't matter. But we're going to take care of our teachers. And I believe the states will take actually better care of them than they are taken care of right now. They'll work all sorts of systems and even merit systems. Those great teachers are going to be maybe a little bit better rewarded, or maybe that's the way it should be, but the states are going to make that decision. But we're going to love and cherish our teachers along with our children, and they're going to work with the parents, and they're going to work with everybody else, and it's going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's really going to be something special. And Linda, you're presiding over something that's so important, and you're going to do a fantastic job. So this will conclude what we are talking about with respect to our most cherished group of people, and that's our children. We want to have our children well educated. We want them to love going to school. We have examples of it. Look at those beautiful, bright-eyed faces. They are so smart.
Props. They're just props.
They are so smart.
Look at this man. He's just sitting here like, yeah, I'm here. And this guy's like, yeah, I'm here with the president. All right, let me stop. That's gonna be very interesting. What exactly does this all mean per se? Like, what's gonna be affected? How is the public school gonna be affected with all this? I mean, my biggest concern was in regards to the grants, because I know I used to work at a Title I school, which means that they were a low income district area, so they received a lot of money from the government to do, money for food, if they needed new devices, amongst other like equipments that could be allotted for the schools in order to help with their education and stuff like that. So that was one of my biggest concern when it comes to getting rid of the Department of Education. But based off of what Trump is saying that he's signing in, that's not going to be touched. So then the other question in regards to how is that going to affect colleges with student loans and all that stuff, we don't know. That's interesting enough. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up in regards to this is how is this going to affect school districts as opposed to who goes to what school? So, well, he mentioned, helping the teachers and making sure that they're taken care of. Of course, that means a higher pay bump. That's exactly what he's talking about as far as being taken care of. But in that same sense, how does that affect the actual school? So if you have a school, let's say the school that I went to where, the student body makes things a little difficult when it comes to learning, parents want to decide to move elsewhere to better school district. How are they going to do that whole redlining thing with the school districts as opposed to, which school you can go to based off of where you live? And even then, are they just allowing kids to just go, or parents to just bring their kids to, just this one school over here because it's been known to be a good school versus the other schools that aren't, doing that well education wise and thus lacking and thus having a low student body count? So is it then at a point where that school gets shut down? How's that going to work? Because I live in a county where we are one of the top 5 biggest school districts in the US. And there are quite a bit of schools that don't do as well as other schools. So if they're allowed to be able to decide where the kid goes to school now, then how is that going to affect the other schools? How's that going to affect the other students in that school area? And even then, are we going to have to pay for schools since the money is going to be? I mean, that's the other important thing when we're talking about taxes and our taxes going, property taxes especially, being affected based off of like the school district and all that stuff. With the Department of Education out of there, that's normally where, if I recall, that's where a lot of the money for our school taxes is going towards. So now that's money that we get back as homeowners and stuff. So, which is good, but now it's just a matter of how is the schools going to get their funding now if they're supposed to be getting funding. You know what I'm saying? So like I was saying before, the school district that I work with, their budget would be in the billions. And I'm sure a lot of that isn't going to be there anymore. They still get some type of funding because, like you say, still gets Pell Grants or grants or whatever the case may be. But as far as like stuff that was supposed to be normally designated for the Department of Education, that's no longer going to be there. How much that is, I have absolutely no clue. But how is that? Is this just a lot of questions? It's just a lot of questions. But when we have questions, we have someone that can give us some type of answer. Now, I did this last time. I'm going to go ahead and do it again. I'm going to go ask Cove, my chat GBP compadre, and see what he says. We're not going to go based off of, we're going to use this as a tool to better understand the situation, but we're not going to take everything that he says as law. I'm not even going to hold you. This is kind of interesting. What's up, Cove?
Hey, not much. Just here to chat with you. What's on your mind?
That's kind of creepy, but okay. All right. So as far as everything that's going on with the Department of Education being taken away by President Trump with the executive order, just so I could better understand, what exactly was the Department of Education for?
The U.S. Department of Education was created to ensure equal access to education and to promote educational excellence throughout the nation. It oversees federal educational programs, administers financial aid for students, and enforces federal educational laws regarding privacy and discrimination. The department also collects data on U.S. schools, provides funding for public education, and works to improve the quality of education.
So with the idea of the Department of Education being taken away, which specific programs financially would be affected in this? Take your time.
If the Department of Education were to be eliminated, several financial aid programs and services could be affected. Some of the major ones include 1. Federal student aid. Programs like Pell Grants, federal work study, and federal student loans provide crucial financial support to millions of students. 2. Title I grants. These grants help schools with high numbers of low-income students by providing additional funding to improve educational outcomes. 3. Special education programs, IDEA. These funds support students with disabilities, ensuring they receive appropriate educational services. 4. Adult education and literacy. Programs that provide education and training for adults seeking to improve their literacy and job skills. 5. School nutrition programs. These include free and reduced price lunch programs that help ensure children from
Hold
low
on,
income.
Cove. Hold on. Okay, so just to be clear, wasn't there another type of department agency that was over education before the Department of Education?
Before the U.S. Department of Education was established in 1980, education was primarily overseen by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, HEW. The creation of the Department of Education as a separate entity aimed to focus specifically on federal education policy and programs.
Okay, with all that being said, how does the Department of Education being removed affect college students?
If the Department of Education were removed, college students could be significantly affected in several ways. 1. Federal student aid. Programs like Pell Grants, federal student loans, and work-study opportunities would likely be disrupted. These funds are crucial for many students to afford tuition and other college expenses. 2. Loan servicing and forgiveness programs. Programs that manage student loans, including repayment plans and loan forgiveness options, would face challenges. This could impact students' ability to manage or reduce their educational debt. 3. Regulation and oversight. The department sets standards and regulations for colleges and universities. Without it, there might be less oversight, potentially affecting the quality and integrity of educational institutions. 4. Access to resources. The Department of Education provides resources and support for students, including information on scholarships and rights. A removal could limit access to these important tools.
Thank you, Cove. Take it easy. Tell the channel. Peace.
You're welcome. Take care and have a great day. Peace.
And like I said, that with all the change that's happening, it's going to get worse before it gets better. The thing about with the college students is that I'm realizing, or I'm starting to see a lot of news reports saying that students can't reapply for the repayment program. So that's essentially, when you have your student loans, you had a loan that you got to pay off, and you go in a repayment program where you can ultimately pay less monthly while paying off the student loan. So are you paying $50 instead of, let's say, $200, $300 a month? Yes. But ultimately, that loan just stays longer. But that's essentially what the repayment plan is. The idea behind that is now that with the Department of Education, that's more than likely going to shift. I mean, we're already seeing shifts where we can't reapply for the repayment plan. So then that means everybody's payments is going to be going up, which should be interesting. It should be interesting. But it seems like the idea that's supposed to be in place is that everybody essentially should be getting more money anyways due to the amount of money that we're not putting towards the Department of Education, which means more money in our pockets from the taxes and all that stuff, that the amount of taxes that the Department of Education was getting. So it's all just a matter of reallocating funds, or at least that's the idea, is being able to reallocate the funds elsewhere, more into our pocket, just so that we can pay more somewhere else. But at the end of the day, it's what we decide to do with our money, as opposed to being told this is what's coming out of our check, which should be interesting. It should be very interesting. I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that's not looking forward to this at all. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Of course, I can speak in a calm manner because I've already graduated. I mean, my student loan repayment may go from 160 to 260, maybe even more. But luckily, I managed to be in a spot with my job to where if that happens, I'll be all right. And not only that, my kids are pretty young, so they're still young, and we can figure out exactly what they gotta do. If they gotta get to a point where they're homeschooled, then sure, because school systems are teaching ridiculous stuff anyways. But at the end of the day, this is what's happening right now. Y'all go ahead and leave a comment and let me know exactly what y'all think. I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.